And now, the continuation of the Wormhole Manifest podcast, featuring our special guest, Mario Mora, the Artisan Rogue. Sorry for the abrupt cutoff of part 1 of this episode. I'm merely attempting to make the lengths of each of these comparative for consistency. Thank you for bearing with me on this process. And now, enjoy the remainder of that amazing discussion from episode 4.
This.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's what a lot of people like that. A lot of people that do great work, you know, it's almost like a difficult question to say what influenced you, because when you are a observer of life on this planet and you see and witness all these different aspects of and different angles, like would you go back in time and ask like Leonardo da Vinci what his influences were? Because his influences was everything around him at any given time. Like the way birds flew, you know, like he would just sit there. He would take birds that were caged and like let them go and just watch them fly away and like try to draw different aspects while it was flying. And then he would repeat the process, like let another bird go. Oh, it's doing this, you know, to try to see what are the mechanics of what he's visualizing, you know, like what is he seeing, you know, and that's an influence. That's, you know, something that would be portrayed later in different, you know, art and designs and inventions that he would make, you know, everything, you know, like, and that's what like many artists throughout time, I think people in general, like we like to recreate the things around us as we see them from our perspective, because nobody sees it the same way. Like we don't see things the same way. Like even if two people are sitting down in the movie theater watching the same movie, they're going to have different things to say about it at the end. They'll have a different review to write about the same movie, you know? So it's all about interpretation. And I think that's the beauty of it. And being an artist and being someone who can appreciate some of the different finer things in life, you know, and it's about appreciating the perspective and hearing about it. Like when someone gives their review of a movie or a new album release, or, you know, like a piece of work, even like people are doing a lot of VR artwork now. And it's like, you know, it may not resonate with me as much because I'm like, what is this? You know, it's so new to me and I don't completely understand it, but they're immersed in this world that's like virtual, and they're just painting with the tools that they're provided that are completely digital in this other realm, you know, that it's all in a computer. But when they create the work and they save it into like a 2-dimensional object or even 3D, it's like animated sometimes, and then they show it out on a 2-dimensional platform, like on a social media or whatever, and you look at it, you're like, is this real? Like, what is this? Like, am I actually seeing this? Like, would I see this in a museum? You know, like, you know, you wouldn't see anything like it 50 years ago or even a couple hundred years ago in a museum. Like it just wouldn't exist. But the elements of it that go into it, some of it may actually be influenced by some of those things, you know, like that you saw in those museums, like, and it's like just time progressing and everything is changing and constantly and being deconstructed and reconstructed. And, you know, it's very interesting how it's all going, and art as a concept, I think is something that will continually keep evolving over time, and we will just keep seeing different elements of things that we saw hundreds of years ago, like what you said with like the hieroglyphs and the Egyptian art and things like that. Like it's going to resurface even if we don't see it for like another 20 or 50 or 100 years. At some point it's going to pop back up again, and it's going to be like, oh, you know, where did this come from? It looks new, you know, if anybody's alive at the time that researched this stuff, you know. It's crazy, you know, and you can't just isolate it to like one influence, you know. There's life is an influence, and I think it's such a great thing to be able to appreciate all this stuff. And I think you're doing a great job at what you do as an artist, because, and I can appreciate what you do because what you're producing is something that resonates with me because I see the elements of things that influence me like throughout life. And that's what I can appreciate by looking at different art too. And like, I think you and I share a lot of those similarities with things that we grew up with that we appreciated. And so like, I'm like, that's, I love Mario's art because I can see the things that I loved as a kid, like in that stuff. So.
I appreciate that. I know, like, it's something you had said right now really kind of struck a note with me when I was still at the museum. Like, I worked there for a couple months through the majority of the pandemic when it was really heavy. And so, I worked like 4 nights a week where you just walk that museum at night consistently. You see the same works over and over again. And it really struck me, like when I was in school, I was learning about a lot of them. And it kind of got me that, the Nelson had all of these different things on display. And I found out 2 very important things that I found out transcends into other museums. So I'm certain somebody will probably, if they're from the Nelson, they'll call me out on this, but this is a real thing. 2 things affect what's on display. One, if it's eventually considered historically, preferential. You look at a lot of the things like by Manet, Monet, a lot of them, they weren't taken seriously. Rodin, famous sculptor, died penniless from cold. Yeah. Caravaggio, we celebrate that because of the big one that's in there. That dude, I know different versions of how he died. There was one that he may have died from the after effects of a sword fight, drunk. But he's also one of my biggest heroes. And the guy, was known to be fairly insane. He was somewhat of a roustabout and considered the kind of lower rung person you wouldn't have expected to be in a museum or to have any art that would have been, worth showing. Enough times gone by that his name is risen into legend, and his work stands the test of time. His chiaroscuro works, the shadow work is amazing. But it always strikes me too that there's that happens, but then you'll also get like I can use the Byzantine artwork they have there, or any of this other stuff there. If a museum has somebody on staff that specifically knows that art, you will see more of that art. There are reasons why you'll go to certain art museums and there's like, well, where's the Renaissance art? We don't have anyone that knows about it. They may have some in their collection. It will never see the light of day.
Oh, man.
I, because of the job I worked, I used to see, I'm not joking, hundreds of examples of artwork that had never seen the light of day at the Nelson.
Oh, wow.
In these giant vaults. I can't tell you where they are, but in these giant, that's the one thing I do take seriously. But when I worked security, I was like, no, they did entrust us with that.
Yeah.
And there's certain things you just can't say, but yeah. And I mean, and I used to ask that. There were some other guys there that had worked longer. I'm like, why isn't this on display? And they were the ones who were like, because we don't have anyone on staff that knows about it. Oh, wow. So when they don't know about it, they don't put it there because they don't want to get the information wrong, or the public consensus wants to see other stuff. So the public really has a huge influence on what is and isn't popular. Because there's tons of artists that I really like that, I may not see their artwork out there because they're either unknown or they're still alive. Because that seems to be a prerequisite. Like, is he dead? Okay, let's get him a room. So, yeah.
Oh, man.
I tend to have a really weird love-hate relationship with museums. I do love them.
Yeah.
But I do understand, too, that museums exist because dead people made shit. I mean, it's a horrible way to say it, and I don't mean that in any disingenuous way. It truly is what it is.
Yeah. I guess I've kind of noticed that, too, and I used to think about that when I was in a museum. I'm like, you rarely see something on display that is getting a lot of attention that the artist is still alive. Like,
oh yeah, it's rare. Yeah.
That's, I don't know. Like that's just it seems to be like I guess I just accepted it like a long time ago. Like you just
Yeah.
you know if you want to see art, current art from artists that are still currently making art, like
Mm-hmm.
you go to like a festival or like a
Yeah.
like an outdoor like art fair or something,
Yep.
and you look at it and you're like, oh wow, that's cool, but it doesn't get that attention, like
Yep.
all these artists have these booths up, and you go to the booths and you're like, wow, this stuff's really cool,
Mm-hmm.
but like you think about it, like if you're comparing it to, like some people may who don't know much about art, they'll be like, they'll look at it and they may judge,
Oh
the
yeah.
art and say like, well, this will never end up in a museum, like,
Yep.
or something, but you don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
it may well be in, an artist's studio, and then the artist passes away for whatever circumstances, and like the studio lays dormant for 20, 30 years, and then someone goes and uncovers it, and then they're like, look at all this art, like what who was this person? And then
Yeah.
they start putting pieces together and researching who the person was, and they make a big deal about it, and it's
Yeah.
on the news, they're like saying, this is what this guy did, and it was so amazing, and it's like influential to, future generations. And they just like spin it all out of control.
The greatest thing about so much of that too, and this is something that I learned recently. A buddy of mine was doing a research paper, and I think it was Icelandic culture, and he said there was a cave that was found that had all this like writing. It was early Icelandic, and there was some that was written way up on top of the ceiling,
Hmm.
and they couldn't figure out what it was, and they got a ladder, and they were like, surely this is some sort of cryptic message. We'll glean some sort of knowledge from it. Turned out it was literally the ancient Icelandic version of Jeff was here. Like that's what the fuck it says. It's just like some asshole like got a ladder, was like and just like carved it up there. It was like, man, give it 1,000 years. So
Yeah.
that's like the ultimate internet troll. Like that is such an epic rickroll. It's not even funny. I love that. And
Yeah.
even like I didn't realize this. Like one of the things that will never be on display are the notebooks and sketchbooks of Da Vinci's pupils.
Mm.
They're filled with dicks. And I was like, that can't be right. Until I read a research paper and then saw photography on it. That's all they drew. Like they would be doing perspective and then a penis on the side of it. I'm like, they were just like us.
Yeah.
Like
sitting in school with a notepad, and you're like listening to the teacher drone on, and like you got the one guy who's just sitting there drawing dicks on everything.
That to me, I was like, if anything, that would make it that much more relatable, because we tend to abscond this and we tend to put him on this pedestal and like he was a great man. And that's fine. Yeah, that's true to a certain degree. But look at what the misrepresentation of certain things can do. Mm-hmm. I mean, although I will admit that Thomas Edison did good things, he was a marketer. He was not the genius that Tesla was.
Right.
But public perception and hellacious marketing by
he was
Edison,
a businessman. Like,
yeah, dude, come on.
He was all about the notoriety, the business, the the claim to fame. He knew what the relations were with the public. He wanted that.
Absolutely.
And like Tesla was actually like into what he was doing because, like he wanted to advance our society and like create things, but didn't care about the rest, he was like, I'm going to, I'm working on a project. Don't bother me, and I'm going to stay in this house or this building and warehouse and build this thing because it means something to me. And like Edison's working. He's working the numbers and manipulating things and be like, this is, if we do this, then that's what this means. And I can get my name known for this and put my name on this patent. And, and I've read a lot about that too. And it's just like, it's crazy, man. There's people out there that do all this stuff, that, man.
It's nuts. I mean, and And that same sort of proliferation happens in the art world as well too. And in fact, there's a Stuart Temple he's a phenomenal artist out of the UK. He does some really insanely dickish moves to other artists, but the reason he does it is to kind of, he's been in this long-standing feud with another very wealthy artist who, I can tell you a little bit about it really quickly. There was a color named black, the blackest black. The black paint is so dark that it actually absorbs light. And if you paint it on something, it looks like a void.
Oh, wow.
So Anish Kapoor, this other artist, was like, I love that black. Nobody else will own it. I am buying the patent and nobody can use it. Stuart Temple was like, couples dance, and didn't want that. So he was like, fine, I'm making black number 3. And he made a couple of iterations and he made his own formula. And if you go to buy it, it actually says, by buying this paint, you so solemnly swear you are not Anish Kapoor. And calls him out. He hates the dude. But they've been going back. Like, he made the pinkest pink and the whitest white. All of these colors. And Anish Kapoor can't use any of them. I think that's the guy's name. But, like, it's interesting because people get caught up in that and the bombastic nature of that. But I've actually, like, I remember in a live Q&A, I was asking him, do you think it's our responsibility to educate people when it comes to creative facets? Because a good example I can use is, if you grab like a soda can, somebody had to make that design. It did not just exist.
Right.
Just as much as you would have to do a painting. It's two different things, but it still involved a creative vision, creative direction, and ultimately an output that you presented.
Yeah.
He was like, no, people should want to do that of their own accord. And although I somewhat agree with him, my issue is that every single show I've ever done, I have seen other artists go through this, or you'll hear, and this is one of the worst things, you'll have your shit out at the show, and somebody will come by, and they think you don't hear them, or that you're just made of, like, cheesecloth or something, and everything will pass through you, because they'll say something like, oh, this is so cool. I actually had 2 young women, this was a few years ago at Planet Comic-Con, they came up, they saw one of my original drawings, and the one girl said, oh, I really want to get this. Well, the other girl was like, I could draw that for you. And I didn't really care that I lost the sale, but she was like, well, I know, but like, I really like his work. And she's like, yeah, but I could draw it for you and I'll just charge you half the price. So literally right in front of my table goes, the dirty deed is being done. And that's the sort of thing I've seen other people do to other artists in far worse scenarios.
Oh, man.
And I often think to myself, like, not only is that a deprecation towards somebody's ego and their emotions, and when I'm used to it. I don't really care. I do care, but I can get past it. But
yeah.
I've seen it literally completely decimate other artists. And nobody likes to hear that. I don't care how long you've been in the game of creativity. Nobody wants to hear that about their work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's shitty, because it's just like,
yeah.
I'm trying to relate it to something that's not art, like if it's something like if you bake a cake,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to give it to some people you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and then the person's like, oh, you don't need their cake. Like, I can bake one that's probably better, or like I can bake one that's the same or looks the same or whatever, it's like, that's not the intention. Is that you're doing something that you like to do and you want to share it,
Yeah.
and then other people are like, no, that person doesn't need to share with you. You're like cutting them off, and that's not, I don't know.
No, you're right. I mean, and there's also, which thankfully has only happened to me once. I had a person that got irate with me it's been about 4 years. They got really irate at one show because I had my rates up, and I think I was doing 9x12 illustrations at the time for like $35 full color. And she was like, well, could you draw this for me? I was like, yeah. And then, I guess she didn't see the sign. I said, well, you don't have to pay it now, but you can pay it when you get back. She's like, wait, so you charge for this? I was like, for the drawing? Yeah. And she got a little upset. She stood there for a bit. I was like, if you don't want it, that's cool. There's other people that are doing it for cheaper. This is just my rate. And she's like, that's a God-given talent. And you were probably already going to draw something anyway. So why don't you just draw me? Because she wanted to self-portrait.
Oh.
And I was like, for free. And she was like, well, you were going to draw today, right? And I was like, yeah, but I wasn't going to draw you. And,
right.
And it was the whole thing of like, the fact that her entire reasoning stood by the factor that I was going to draw, and that which is the other reason I have a big issue with the word talent. It isn't talent, it's skill. It's practice. It's like anything. If you don't mandate that, everybody gets rusty. I know very few artists. I know one artist, in fact, one, who he probably could go a year without drawing and would still be phenomenal. But very few others. I'm certainly not one of those people.
Yeah.
And she just got really irate over the thing. And I was like, I'm not going to argue with you, but just because I can do something that seems easy to you doesn't mean it's not worth my time to charge for it.
Yeah.
But she couldn't equivocate how what I was doing was the same as her job. Because I was like, imagine if I, asked you to work for free. And she's like, well, that's different. That's a job. You love doing this. I was like, so? I'm not going to die of hunger just because you need an ego trip, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I think that sometimes people need that education, because I don't I try to look for the positive in people, and I don't want to believe that people are really that acidic in how they'll say something, but I know that there are people that they just don't get it. They're just they assume that whenever you're doing something that it doesn't take that much. People, I this.
Yeah.
People will always say, I'm going to start a podcast. They get one episode in, they have no idea how hard it is to edit, to put this stuff together.
Yeah.
Yep. And when you hear them like, oh yeah, I was thinking about doing a podcast. When somebody says that, I almost want them to do it just to see how hard it is,
Yeah. And once they learn and they're like, whoa, this is,
yeah.
A lot different than what they were thinking.
Yeah. I go crazy doing my little monologue one,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just one waveform I have to edit. So for anyone listening, a waveform is a sound file thing that you're editing. But, and you've got two people,
Yeah.
So you're kind of balancing that back and forth, pacing, all that other stuff. Like, oh crap, did I miss something? And people don't think about that,
Yeah. And like, I guess nowadays too, like with the whole TikTok thing, there's a lot of people,
Jesus, yeah,
doing these little videos and stuff. And it's
yep.
A lot of it looks, it's pretty amazing what people can do with it,
Yeah.
And then I imagine there's people out there like, wow, there's all these people out there doing this, and they're like getting really popular doing it, have millions of views.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do that. And then it's not until they try it and then they realize that it actually takes work to sit there. Like I've made a few TikToks, but like I don't do it all the time because to me, it's like, if I'm going to put it out there so everybody can see it, like I want it to be halfway decent, so I take the extra time and I'm like, after, pretty soon you're like an hour and a half or 2 hours deep into making this video. And you're like, holy shit, how do these people have that have millions of views and they have like 500 videos and they all look pretty amazing? Like they put a lot of work into this, and it's like, that is a form of art, in a way. That's like a form of creativity that they're working at to produce. But some people don't get it, and they think like, oh, they just know how to do it. I'm like, they've learned how to do it, and they've practiced and tried different things, and eventually put out a product that and it's the same thing. It's like you make a picture or draw a picture or paint a whatever, and it's like, you can sit there and watch Bob Ross paint a painting, and it looks like, it looks because he's been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
That's what he does, and that's how he does it. It's not like you said, it's not really a talent. I mean, he is very talented with the different
Yes.
techniques, but there is a skill. It's absolutely a skill, you know, and not everybody can do that. And that's why we need to appreciate the people that can do it and the people that do it, and make sure that they are recognized, I guess, you know, for their art. Like if I was that girl, or not if I was that girl, but if I were you talking to that girl, I've been like, can you do this? You know, like,
dude, I know.
And it's just ridiculous to think that, you know, I mean, I don't know. You probably had better composure than I probably would have.
I would like to think that I do, but there's a lot of times whenever, I mean, I think in my time, like, especially having done security, you learn to deal with things like that. But the worst gut punch I ever got as far as creative, like, mishmash was, and it was actually the reason why I ended up quitting Hallmark. This was probably a few months prior. The company had shut down, and so you just had to go back in for a few things. And I had to get my laptop worked on. It was messing up, couldn't get the password to work or whatever. So the reason I'm saying that is because earlier, right before the COVID got bad, there was a position that had opened up, and it was in a creative department. I'm going to be really careful how I tell this story. I've already got it. I got in trouble once for this already, but I'm going to be as open as I can about this. So there was a department that I had talked to who was in charge, and all these other things. They liked my portfolio. They thought, you know what, you're learning these skills. You already have a basic understanding of 3D skills, and you know the Adobe Creative Suite really well. You'll probably be a good fit into this. I was like, great. And I was like, so what next? And they're like, well, I'm not the one that makes the decisions. It's actually the accountant over our team that makes the creative decision. I was like, for hiring? They're like, yeah, it's all about budget. So it's like, that makes complete sense. So some time goes by, and needless to say, I didn't get that job. So I stayed in the group I was in, and I was already getting a little disillusioned, but the nail in the coffin was I had to take the computer in. And when I went in, there was a guy, this one fellow. I'd never met him before. We finally met in person. And we just got to talking about days there at Hallmark. And I kind of talked about my craziness I was going through and the problems with my laptop. And then he said, oh, yeah. And he says, oh, you want to hear a crazy story? He's like, just a couple months ago, he said, I had a woman that she called me up and she was like, hey, I need some help. He says, well, what with? And she was like, well, with some software. And he was like, okay. He was like, well, we have an opening here. And she was like, okay, well, you know, it hopefully won't take too long. And he was like, okay, not that. Well, we'll see what the problem is. He goes, can you give me some details? She was like, well, not at the moment. She's like, I'll just wait and then I'll explain then. It should be really easy. He goes, okay. You know, so he didn't have anything to write the ticket on. So she ends up coming in to IT, and she brings in this Mac laptop, and he's like, okay, so what's the issue? And she's like, well, I need to learn Adobe. And he's like what? Like, she was like, the Creative Suite. I've got like half an hour. And and I'm sitting there like, what? And he's like, yeah, man. She came in and she had 30 minutes to learn the whole fucking suite.
No.
And he was like, we have this program called Linda. You can go, like, you can check that out. There's YouTube. He's like, I can't teach you Adobe in 30 minutes. And she's like, well, how much harder is it than Word? And he's like, this is in a whole other class. And I'm like, wait a minute. So then as he's telling the story, I'm getting this weird sense of unease because he keeps saying, you know, there was a couple months ago. I was like, when did this happen? And as it turns out, this woman, he was very frank about this because after he found out what happened, he was like, well, let me tell you what she was. This woman was another accountant. The company, Hallmark, was downsizing at the time. This accountant was in danger of losing her job. She applied for the same position I did. Because the hiring manager over this department was an accountant, he just hired her. Put her in this position, which involved a lot of 3D work and a lot of Adobe knowledge, and I didn't get it. I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of other creatives that didn't get it. But at that point in time, I realized it has nothing to do with my skill sets. And that was, and I've got dear friends that still work at Hallmark, and I wish them all the best in the world. But that was like the worst. Like, it was like, it's like that scene in every anime when something horrible happens to you and your eyes darken and it's just black around you. I sat there in that morbid pool of self-hatred because I'm like, what did I do wrong? And that's the worst part about it was I blamed myself for that,
Oh,
you know?
man.
But hindsight is 2020, even though
Yeah.
looking back is still a little bit fuzzy. I still look at it and go, okay, there was nothing I could do. It wasn't meant to be. And I'm in a much better place now than I would have been.
Yeah.
But when you hear stories like that, like, I mean, that's what I went through, but I've heard that sort of song and dance from other people before.
Yeah. And
You
I'm
know?
sure that's very same type of like situation and process of like hiring or
Yeah.
downsizing. Like, I mean, like in like engineering, there's
Oh
probably
man,
people
yeah.
that have probably like 25 years in like aviation engineering, and they
Yeah.
hire like the new guy right out of college over this guy
Yep.
because they can pay him half of
Yep.
the salary.
Yep.
They're like, and they're just like, well, we'll just work with it, like, and they'll figure it out as they go, and then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, wish you the best, like
Yeah.
whatever. Like, I don't
Yeah.
blame you, man. Like, and yeah, it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
that kind of thing is so, and it sucks that it probably is a lot more common
Oh, it
than
is.
we would wish for. Like, we hope it's not like that, but it is, like in a
Yeah.
corporate environment, like there's these bean counters and stuff that are putting together the policies for the hiring and firing process that,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, they want to keep the company moving, but see, they don't see the corporation as this like well-oiled machine that
Right.
like you have to keep the right people in the right places at the right time to keep it pushing and chugging along, like
Yeah.
like it is a machine, like, and when they remove someone that is of value to that machine, that to the functionality of it, you know and they
Mm-hmm.
replace that with like a different kind of cog that doesn't quite fit right, you
Yeah.
know it it may work temporarily,
Mm-hmm.
but later on down the line, someone you would hope has got to notice.
Oh
but
yeah.
but we sit there and think to ourselves, like, they're never going to know. Like, once we're gone, they won't miss us,
No,
and that's what sucks, and that's unfortunately how life is a lot of times. It just,
it is.
once you leave, like when I retired from the military, like the job that I did, I know affected the people that were right around me that I personally trained how to
Mm.
do the job. But now that I've been gone for like 6 years, 7 years, like, I know the machine is still working,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
still chugging along. There's tons of new people, and the people that I trained are training those people.
Yep.
So I only hope that a little bit of my training or my ways kind of rubbed off on them, and they're passing it down to the people that they're training, and it will just keep going on from there, until the end of time. Like,
Yeah.
it's just what it is. Or the whole mission changes, and it's like all the things that I knew that I was training these guys on when I was in there, like, it's all going to totally change because there's going to be
Yeah.
new products. There's going to be
Yep.
new ways of doing things with a new type of, like I worked on, like, I packed parachutes,
Right.
and like we installed them on like ejection seats in the B2, and also before that, the F-15 and the B2 have the same style of ejection seat.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so, and the parachute is exactly the same.
Okay.
So when you're packing this chute and it goes on that style of ejection seat, well, eventually we're going to have new airplanes, and they're going to have new styles of ejection seats and new styles of parachutes and a whole new way that it functions. So those people that the engineers that design it have to train people that know how to do this stuff, with the new system. So it's all going to change. So like everything we once knew, and I guess we were proud of it at one moment that we knew how to do this job, but it's going to be non-existent at some point, so it's kind of like you can't put too much into it. You can give it your all and say, I did this job and I was proud of what I did. And, maybe there was a few plane crashes that my parachute saved the life of the pilot, and I'm proud of that moment. And, the system worked as it should, because of what I did.
Right.
But the system's going to change. And so someone else is going to get a chance to hopefully they won't get a chance to potentially lose a pilot, but hopefully they save them, and hopefully it all works out. But like that system's going to be obsolete. And, and like now with working on computers, what I know eventually is going to be something completely different, and I either have to stay with the times and progress and learn and evolve as the things change, or I can be like some of my old customers that last used a computer that was like Windows XP, and the stuff doesn't work the same as it did back then. There's a little bit of difference, and it's changed, and now we have internet and all this crazy stuff. People call me up and ask me the weirdest questions, like, why is my taskbar, or why is this thing on the bottom with all the little pictures on it, like halfway up the screen? Because they didn't know that they moved the mouse down onto the taskbar and dragged it up halfway up the screen.
Oh my God.
And I have to explain what a taskbar is, because they don't know. And it's just like, I'm like, you gotta know, you gotta learn what YouTube is, you gotta learn what the nomenclature of the things that you're clicking on are, what is a web browser, like,
and
it's just crazy, man. It's like, with any line of work, whether it's like what you do with art stuff, and like you do a lot of digital stuff now, and all this, and I worked in aviation on airplanes and in a few different places, like, it's constantly evolving, and we have to, I guess, keep up with it, keep up with what we do so we can be the professionals that we are. And hey, sorry about the interruption, the abrupt cutoff. It's time for a commercial break, because I had to do a whole bunch of crazy editing with this episode because it ran so long, and I'm trying to splice it all together and make it sound cool. So check out this commercial, and then stay tuned for the conclusion of the conversation between myself, Wormhole Matt, and the Artisan Rogue, Mario Mora. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Wormhole Manifest podcast. If you like what you hear, then tune in wherever you get your podcast. Anchor, Spotify, Google, iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addicts, and many more. And please like and follow our posts on social media. On Twitter, we are @WormFestPod. On Instagram, we are Wormhole_Manifest. If you'd like to hear more about these topics, send us an email and I'll send you the pertinent information at wormholemanifest@gmail.com. And if you'd like to start your own podcast, check out anchor.fm, where you'll get started creating your own podcast for free. Thanks. See you later.
Yes. I also do think, though, too, that just to a point that you made, not, like one thing I did discover, and this was one of the companies I worked at, they ended up letting go of a bunch of older programmers, and they had to pull back a lot of them. And they pulled them back on contractually for a lot more money hourly than I ever thought anyone would ever get paid, because they had servers that ran on Fortran. That language is super dead, except to like a few people,
Yeah.
And I think like the last 4 people alive worked at that company that knew that damn program. There might be some people at like NASA, but like, and that's it. Like, I'm like, any language that still requires a punch card, why is that still utilized? But companies, often the bigger they are, the slower they are to turn around on things. Or you'll get companies that they're like, well, we've always done it this way. Yes, but that was also during Jim Crow laws. So there's reasons why things change.
Yeah.
Like those went away too.
Exactly.
I think that sometimes like when I was coming into graphic design, Rubylith was the big thing. There was this red film that you would use for cutout and paste up, and if you wanted a layout, you physically laid certain things in, and
Oh, wow.
You don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like like a Methuselah when I say that. I talk to people like, what? I do everything on the iPad. Well, you go on with your Procreate self, but that wasn't how it was back then.
Yeah.
So
a lot of stuff has changed.
Always, man. Always.
Man, we better wrap this up.
Yes.
I may end up doing a thing where I split this into 2 separate episodes.
I was wondering. I was like, it's like midnight.
But man, this has been great. This has been awesome. It's a great conversation. I love talking to you, man. It's been a while,
yes.
And we shouldn't make it go so long. I think.
I know. I agree.
If anything, I know that the whole thing last year has been like COVID and all that, but we need to get together sometime. I think.
Yes, I agree. No, I 100% agree with that. Like that's something that I kept telling myself. Like, one last thing I'll say, COVID absolutely made me understand what isolation was. Like, I do like my alone time.
Yeah.
But then there's that whole thing when I'm just like, man, there's a lot of people I haven't seen, and COVID was scary enough to me that I was like, time goes by before you know it,
Yeah.
I'm like, I think it was also the thing too, like with the shows that I'd done recently, not seeing some people come back and then finding out that one of the vendors I knew had passed away from COVID I did get along with. And I was like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to know that. But, I was upset to hear that, but that it just goes to show how quickly things can change in a heartbeat.
Yeah. You got to grab things while you can and appreciate them. And yeah, I mean, life is too short. So, and I know that because I've suffered a lot of loss, and it's just been it ate at me for so long. And I've just recently made my peace with things. And like you said, it's like you appreciate what you have when you have it. And we need to, when you're in lockdown, you're start thinking, man, there's a lot of stuff I could be doing right now, but I just don't feel safe enough to go do those things or see these people or, participate in these different functions or whatever, you're like,
yeah,
we take it for granted when it's just there, when we can do it any time.
Yeah.
And then when it's not the best idea to do those things, you're like, and I actually made a lot of cool discoveries. I will say that during the pandemic,
yes,
there was a lot of things that came up that I was able to work through and in a positive way,
yeah,
I wasn't able to leave the house for a very long time. And all of a sudden wearing a mask when I go grocery shopping helped me deal with a lot of my anxiety, especially when there was nobody else in the grocery store, and I'm pushing my cart around and I'm like, this isn't so bad. I used to literally run out of Walmart because I was so freaked out. I'm like, I can't stand it in here. It's just too much. There's people.
Yeah.
I hate it, and I would have a panic attack and leave, and like go sit in the car while the wife was in there doing the rest of the shopping, and I'm like, but being able to slowly reintegrate into society because there was a crazy pandemic going on and there wasn't as many people out in the grocery store. I'm like, I started to actually like it. I'm like, I like wearing a mask and I like pushing my cart and not having to run into people or having crazy kids screaming and running by me all the time. Like, I'm like, this isn't bad at all. Like, I like this, and after like several dozen times of doing that, I started to feel more comfortable with going out. Now I go out and there's a lot more people, but I can handle it differently. I've learned to get out there and socialize more. And that's why I was like, man, I'm like learning how to talk all over again, like physically talk, because for the longest time, it was all just like typing on my phone and making posts on social media and in different Discord servers and stuff and talking to friends online that I wasn't speaking. And like, I started to kind of feel like I was forgetting how to talk, how do I, like my brain used to go so fast and I'm like, feel like I'm going to say the wrong thing and like piss somebody off or whatever, and when you're only talking to like your wife and like your kids every once in a while, like, you don't actually get any socialization. I'm like, I need to do something else. What else could I do to help me practice and learn how to speak again? I'll start a podcast and then I'll invite different guests from all walks of life and I'll just talk to them and like get that practice I need and get it out there. So hopefully I don't sound like an idiot, but like when I'm talking to people, but
dude.
whatever, if I do, I do. And, at least it's fun trying.
That's the whole thing, man. There's a guy that I listen to. His name is Sean Cannell. I don't have a lot that personally I can identify with him on. He's fairly different than me, but one thing he always says about making content is there's no such thing as good content or bad content. There's unpublished and published.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's true. That's really, really true. Because he's the one that's like, hey, did you have time to do this? Then you probably had time to do that.
Yeah.
And I try and keep that in my head all the time. Like, he's right. Like, I'm my own worst enemy on that. But doing stuff like that, like this, helps keep me on task and,
Yeah. And plus this is just like, I mean, it's like the whole open forum, the open communication is good for people, I think, in general. Like just
it is.
Talking, like you said, with working and you hear like the water cooler talk, like the people, whatever, but it's like, at least this way and this format is like a, that you're going to be publishing it, but you don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to put on the podcast voice, you're not on the radio, like talking to whoever's driving at the moment after work and listening to your show,
I know.
So it gives you the freedom to be like, whatever we say is what we say. And like what we're feeling at the time, we can always come back later if we listen to it and be like, well, I didn't really mean it like that,
No, I know exactly what you mean on that. Because as much as I love NPR, there is a point where I'm like, I kind of wish they would go a little bit more off the cuff on things. Because I do love the reporting. I love the stuff that I listen to on there. But man, like on a drive, like when I used to still work and I would be driving home listening to NPR in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That's horrible because like, it's just, the voice is so relaxing. Like, you're here on NPR, and that's all you're hearing. I'm like, oh God, I'd have to turn on 98.9 or something just to get Johnny Dare's replay or something like that. And nobody can sleep to Johnny Dare. I don't care who you are.
I think Reggie Watts did a bit where he was talking about like NPR and like their morning coffee sips.
Oh God. Yeah.
You're listening to NPR.
I know, man. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, like barista sound effects. Yeah. That's a slice of millennial life I don't need.
All right, man. Cool. Well, this has been awesome.
Yes.
I can't wait to get you back on here. And do you have any? I like to do this thing at the end is like give a shout out to whoever, whatever, social media, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like something that's or like if you want to plug your website, I think you did earlier. You want to give that info again?
Yeah, sure. You guys anyone listening can find me on www.theartisanrogue.com. And I think that voice came out too sexy. And I don't know why the hell I did that. Like, what am I? What?
The Artisan Rogue.
Right. That was just like, oh God, it was like here on 99 Light FM. Like Delilah. Like, oh God.
We're getting slap happy because it's so
right.
late.
I know. I totally know. Oh God, man. Yeah. No, you guys can find me on that website and everything else like that. You guys can also I do have one funny, real quick thing I can say. My TikTok finally started kind of paying off. Like people are following me on there, which is really weird. But it was only because one day I decided to film a cat. There was a cat stuck in the tree on my front lawn. I went outside. I had no intention of doing a TikTok that day. And I just made a slice of life video of this cat. And I think I'm at 144,000 views on it.
Wow, man. I'm going to have to check that out.
It's ridiculous. And it's ridiculous. It's like, it's the one that went viral and I don't understand it. Like it happened. Like I gained all that stuff in like 2 weeks, I think.
Man.
I don't understand it. There's no compelling reason why I should, except for, hashtag cat. I don't know. and that was it. But yeah. So.
And you're also like, I'm going to have to check that out. That's crazy.
It's extremely, when you see the numbers, you're like, there's no reason those numbers should be there. None. And it makes me mad because like, there's like dozens of other videos with art and other stuff on there.
Yeah.
And they did okay. I got maybe a couple hundred or a couple, like views on them. But then this one cat video and like, that's what everyone, how's the cat doing? What, I'm like, you know what? It lives outside. It's not my cat. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I love is when something goes viral, half the internet wants to give you advice. The other half just wants to hate.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just, I'm like, you know what? I was ready for it. Whatever. Block, 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 block. Yeah.
It's always what you least expect.
Dude, it really is.
But then again, you kind of should expect it when it has to do with like something ridiculous that you don't originally think to expect, because it's the internet is so random and like, but yet the things that become popular like angry cat, or whatever, or grumpy cat, and you're like, yeah, everybody now knows who Grumpy Cat is because that's it just blows up, like somebody takes a picture of something and my kids don't understand half the references that I talk about, but like I think I've seen that in a meme, like they never saw The Princess Bride, but yet they've seen the meme of my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. They've seen that a million times. And when we finally watched the movie, you're like, oh, that's what that meme is from. That's what the next generation is going to be like. They're not going to know what the really reference is, but they'll know what from the meme.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, oh, jeez.
Yeah.
But hey, man, I appreciate you so much for taking the time out to be on here.
Thank you.
My shout outs go out to @SupermannyB, who was on the last episode, and all the other guests that have been on here so far. All the listeners out there, thank you so much for giving me your time. Please give me some feedback on the social media, on the Twitter and Instagram, or on the website or iTunes or wherever you can find this podcast. There's a website. It's Linktree or linktr.ee /wormhole_manifest. The Twitter is @wormfestpod. I love that. Wormfest.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was like, oh, yeah.
And then the Instagram is @wormhole_manifest. And then if anybody wants to know any information about the content on this show, send me an email at wormholemanifest@gmail.com. Everyone, thanks again for listening. And we hope to see you next time. Mario, thanks again, man.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. We will see you next time.
Yes.